Thanks very much, Rob. I hope that many of you already know Jim Powell's poems. The press published his volume, It Was Fever That Made the World, and if everything works out well, 57th Street Books will be here after the reading to sell copies of that book. His volume of translations, A Garland for Sappho, was in some sense the occasion for his lecture yesterday. Jim is a one-time MacArthur Fellow and a fiercely devoted poet at all times. He's one of the very best poets of his generation, and he's especially distinguished among his contemporaries at shaping the sounds of American English into profoundly resonant shapes and forms. Please join me in welcoming Jim Powell.
Thank you, Bob. It's a pleasure to be reading again at the University of Chicago, and I've been lucky in my life to meet a few people that have been sources of courage and of faith and inspiration to me, and Ralph Johnson is one of those people. I feel very lucky to know him, and it's a real pleasure to hear him read today. You should do it more often. I'm going to start with a poem that starts with a translation of a line by Pindar, and it's the only poem I'll read today that I did read when I was here 2 years ago. Partly I want to read it today because it bears on a question that came up yesterday about what kind of influences or inspiration we can take from the classics. I've been spending as much time as I can in July and August in the High Sierra in California backpacking. And one of the pleasures up there is drinking the water, which doesn't have any chlorine in it, or it's live water. After a time, my friends and I got to toasting the weather gods in the native water by way of placating them and getting them to be nice to us up there. And after a while, I started announcing my toast with the phrase from the first verse of Pindar's First Olympian Ode, which is the very first little bit of Pindar's Greek that you'll get to if you read him, Ariston men hudor. And after a while, I started thinking, well, how would you translate that phrase? And once I hit on that, I thought, well, gee, that would make a good beginning to a poem. Maybe I should try and write it. So this is called Odon Water, Ariston men hudor, Pindar. Yes, water is best, alive and icy from a free high country creek, or warm from a canteen overflowing nostrils stinging with sweat. It replenishes the substance flesh is mostly made of, the savor of origin surpassing other tastes. It cleanses and clarifies the palate and the eyes, renews spirits flagging when the grade steepens. It revives desire. The artificial thunder of military aircraft penetrates the remotest recesses and defiles of the High Sierra, banging on the polished walls of pathless granite canyons that remain unshaken, although the calm is broken briefly. But when the gods of weather, by whatever name you please, Jupiter tonans in excelsis, Hoopsy Bremitace Zeus, or Donner der Herr, when the lords of thunder mean to carve out mile-wide gorges, wearing mountains to sand for Pacific beaches, water is the tool they choose. Water that always seeks the depths, following where it's led, till its own course becomes its impetus. Rocketing off boulders into a pool of candid stillness where trout bask in shaded pockets. It wells across the basin's lip to gurgle over cobbles, or cuts lazy oxbows through a meadow barely whispering among aspen. Always in free running streams there are voices, a distant conversation nearly audible if you listen closely. Its manifold inflections braiding in a slippery, fluent interplay, elusive as mercury. These are the voices that consoled Bellerophon, answering his candor when he wandered in the wilderness alone, eating his heart out, hated by all the gods. At evening, he lay down at the water's edge to rest under the sycamores and maples near the meeting of two streams. And as he drifted off to sleep among the babbling throng, trying to distinguish the multitude of sounds entwined in the passing current and tell each strand by name and character, he heard them calling amid the clamor, their polyphony not to be drowned out by thunder, and they restored him. A silent curtain, a silken curtain sluicing its mossy slab, the recurrent gulp of an eddy, a thin drip resonant in a rock hollow. So, in early summer, when the snowpack melts in the high country, corn lilies thrust the spear tips of their tight coiled leaves up through a snowdrift's thinning margin, new growth seeking sunlight to remake the meadow. Every gully swells with runoff. The least depression becomes a watercourse as snowmelt finds its way downhill, and where it meets a trail cut, it fills the trench hikers and horsepackers have worn into the soil and carries off the dirt and leaves the stones, and the steeper the path, the rockier the water leaves it. The next poem I'm going to read you is a translation of an ode to Horace. I think Horace is a strong enthusiasm that Ralph and I share. This is a translation of the 18th ode of the second book of odes, and it's called, I call my translation Wine and Glory. And as soon as I find it, I'll read it to you. Wine and glory. Plant no tree sooner, Varus, than the sacred grape around Catullus walls in Tiber's mellow earth. For those who do not drink, the god makes all things harsh, nor otherwise do biting worries disperse. Who grumbles after wine at war and poverty? Sooner we sing your praise, Bacchus, and Venus yours. And for a warning not to slip and overstep moderation, there is the drunken brawl the centaurs waged with the Lapiths, and the hand of Dionysus heavy upon the Thracians when they divided right and wrong by the thin line of lust and greed. May I not rouse you, Basileus, against your will. What is obscured in party-colored leaves, let me not snatch into daylight. Restrain that wild music of horns and tambourines where self-love follows blindly and glory lifting up her empty head too high, and good faith prodigal of secrets more transparent than glass. This is called the Juggernaut of the Apocalypse. The Juggernaut of the Apocalypse. Rush hour backed up bumper to bumper in all directions, spewing carcinogenic petrochemical smog. The drivers and the driven, bent to the wheel, stalled in toxic byproducts, everyone hunched facing the same way. When the Juggernaut of the Apocalypse reaches the brink of the abyss and starts over in our relentless progress, about to plummet to the final crash, eyes averted in the rearview mirror, the ecocidal maniac behind the wheel wearing the face of anyone stuck in traffic, fuming, wrinkles of resentment from a lifetime biting back sharp words pinched down tight at the corners of the mouth, meaning to get ahead at any cost and not let anyone cut in, protected by a blank look like a mask, as if it were the car itself, as if it were the car that drives itself through the streets of a city already dead. We're standing here today speaking English. English is an Indo-European language, and the Indo-Europeans moved into Europe in about 4,000 BC, maybe, starting about 5,000 BC, actually, and more or less destroyed a previous civilization there, and made their way across Europe and left family monuments in their wake. Ancestral tumulus. Daggers, broadswords, halberds, battle axes, shields, helmets, scabbard parts and buckles, spearheads, manacles, necklaces, wine jars, war trumpets, wagon, chariot, and harness fittings, armor, and heraldic metalwork, entombed in wooden mortuary houses under earthen mounds, with severed skulls of conquered enemies fashioned into goblets, ready beside the skeleton of the Lord, seated in his vehicle of prestige, disassembled for passage to the next world. The godlike male, all drinking, fighting man, surrounded by his concubines and servants and strangled children to keep him company across this threshold, and coins, millions of coins. Long time ago, I worked for Bingham and Company in San Leandro, ran lathes for them for a couple years. This is called 2 million feet of vinyl. The grinding wheel requires 1 hour to ride 6 feet along its rails, traveling on a sheen of oil driven by hidden gears. Its spinning rim just kisses the surface of the vinyl-coated cylinder clamped in the lathe, rotating slowly in the opposite direction. And every particle protruding above the calibrated level is sheared off as it passes, leaving behind a roller face perfectly smooth, so airbrushed photographs of the cooked, colored fruit are replicated without blemish and look natural on the labels of canned peaches. The wheel's abrasive face obliterates all flaws as it revolves. The grind removes obtrusive abnormalities. The cannery press prints clean and true, no kinks, no smear. Each can of fruit produced entails a label. Labels require printing, and presses need rollers polished. One man can tend 6 lathes, punched in on the time clock, 6 feet an hour for 8-hour shifts, 5 weekly, 48 weeks a year. That's 2 million feet of vinyl in a lifetime, ground to powder. This next poem I tried to write 3 times, completely from scratch, and the last time I was here, I read the second attempt. And about a year later, I looked at it and thought, well, no, that doesn't really cut it. But I think this time, I really and truly have it. And this should be up on the internet site called Slate, I think probably in a couple weeks. It's called The Seamstress. And it has a dateline, Dia de los Muertos, which is Dia de los Muertos. The seamstress, Dia de los Muertos, knelt in the middle of the kitchen floor at midnight. There's only so much you can do to mend the skeleton, spread-eagled on the linoleum, painted in faded day glow on a black leotard. The fabric stretches over time, the fibers strain and give and never spring back all the way. Needle and thread stitch up the raveled sleeve. A sponge blots fresh fluorescence onto spine and rib cage. But light leaks through the brittle weave. The needle's eye grows dimmer, the grasp less sure, and joints ache on the cold floor, down again on hands and knees to see the kindergartners dance in the bones of the ancestors. I've been working for about a year now on a sequence of poems, including history. And I want to read you, I'm going to read you 4 of them. The sequence is still ongoing, but we'll see where it goes. The whole sequence has an epigraph from Callimachus that Ralph and I share an admiration for Callimachus and an engagement with his aesthetics. And the epigraph is Amarturon Uden Aiedo. It's a fragment. That's all that we have, that little 3 words, Amarturon Uden Aiedo. There's various ways you could translate it. One would be, I'm interested in the poetry of fact. Another way to translate it would be, don't blame me, I didn't make it up. I found it somewhere else. Another way would be, my poems tell nothing unwitnessed. The first poem in the sequence, I think, is this one. It's called A Painted Hemisphere. In the first line, I mentioned the Mimbres. The Mimbres is a name that we now use for a culture that existed in extreme southwest New Mexico, probably from about 300 AD until about 1250 AD, when there was an enormous drought that seriously disrupted all of the Native American cultures in the American Southwest, including the Mimbres. From about 900 to about 1200 AD, they were engaged in the creation of a world-class tradition of painting on pottery. It's quite amazing art. A lot of it's still in New Mexico. Some of it's in the museum in Boston. I think it's the Peabody Museum of Anthropology, and a lot of it's in private collections now, unfortunately. A painted hemisphere. There's about 150 different identifiable species of animals that you can find in the several thousand pots that have been recovered. A painted hemisphere. The Mimbres, ancients, buried family skeletons prone underneath their Pueblo household floors, with broad ceramic bowls inverted over skulls, interred below their earthen domes, eye sockets upward. The inner face, a painted hemisphere of art for blind eternity, a hole punched through the center of the bowl chosen, fulfilling custom, letting the breath escape, the broken clay, the image, the design. A lunar rabbit bends a quarter turn round this one's vacant middle. The winking crow perched halfway down his backbone, beaks the nearest of 4 pair of ribs, their cartoon crescents, all the remains of the hare's hindquarters, his waning orb half eaten by the bird pecking clean knuckles of his spine, this 5th moon rabbit, hare of the May, his good eye cocked off-center at the bottom of a punctured bowl, and grizzled whiskers quiz the solar scavenger fastened on his shoulder blade, talons in the quick. In his still gaze, outward serenity, a bemused whisper, sister quail, brother fish. This poem is called Drake's Psalmistry. That's Sir Francis Drake, who paid a visit to Northern California in 1579, spent about 6 weeks on the coast of Marin County repairing his ship. Drake's Psalmistry, and it has a date line, New Albion, June 26, 1579. Their king was robed in a coat of cunny skins that reached his waist, and bare besides. Bone rosaries engirt his shoulders. His crown is a caul of knitwork covered with a silken down of milkweed seed tufts that tremble at a breeze like waves through wheat. His train wears other skins. The common sort go naked in the nipping colds that pinch these coasts. Their long hair stuck with plumes behind, but in front one only, like a horn, each pleasing himself in his own device. When they were nearer, all set down their bows, and as men ravished in their minds with fear advanced wonderingly to worship us as gods. Meantime, the women began to shriek and scratch their cheeks and bespot their dugs with blood and dash themselves against the ground in fury till their strengths failed, no, nor allowed us to hold them back, so mad they were in their idolatry. Our general entreated them by gentle signs to cover their nakedness, gesturing to show we are men, not gods, and need to clothe our shame likewise. Our spirits groaned to see these harmless souls seduced by Satan, and we raised hands and gazed toward heaven to signify the God whom they ought to serve. And now we went to reading of the scriptures and prayers and singing hymns, and they quieted and sat attentively with eyes of comprehension and rejoicing, and at the close of every psalm cried with one voice, Ho! This is called the Staves, and it too has a date line, April 13, 1887, 44 degrees and 3 minutes north latitude, 181 degrees and 8 minutes west longitude, which is in the Gulf of Alaska. The Staves. Confined to cabin through 5 days by storm off Unalaska, the expedition's scientific gentlemen, cribbed in the narrow coffins of our berths, continued quizzing Kadu in the dark, while heavy seas pitched the Rurik heavenward, while heavy seas lifted the Rurik heavenward and pitched her shuddering from the brink again. Why is the taboo on men and women eating together not true for fruit? The answers drifted back like oracles from the Polynesian's upper bunk. Fruit is a drink. Why are drums the women's, boats the men's? Midway from the equator to the Arctic pole, bound north for the Aleutians, a sailor from boyhood, Kadu noted, Sirius setting nightly southward, observed the flight of birds at dusk and dawn, but could not answer this one. And when Chamiso asked what the staves meant, carved with notched rings, implanted in pandanus groves, the Kadu, who was seized with shaking to behold a snowflake pause and vanish on his palm, repeated calmly, what kept the island's population scanty enough to feed and healthy and long-lived was ancient custom. Each child a mother bears, after her third she must herself bury alive. The staves designate burials. This he attributed insistently to the scarcity of the island's parsimonious soil. We could not help him grasp the concept of life's continuance after death. He scarcely trusts our accounts of suicides, though history in her book records the self-destruction of the tribes of the Marianas under Spain. And still, our busy merchant captains rake up the flames of war to raise their profits on the weapons sold. That poem is partly based on the memoir of Adalbert von Chamiso, who was a German poet in the generation after Goethe, and who was sailed as a naturalist on the expedition led by a Russian, or actually a German serving under the Russians named von Kotzebue, to explore the Bering Straits area. And it's the last couple lines about the activities of our busy merchant captains was based on his observations in 1817. Some things change and some things, I guess, don't. The last poem I'll read you from the sequence is called Advent. And Advent. I was a grown man when Bogus Tom, Peter, and Shasta Molly brought the Earth Lodge dances. Some folks here spoke their language. On the way, they stopped at every rancheria. At Cache Creek, men, women, boys, and girls, even children and old blind ladies danced. The women had their hair down long and crowns of flowers. Joy Joy the Wapanuch brought word. My father asked, "What kind of dance can you give now when everyone is dead?" I said, "I dream the earth is going to be changed, and when the grass is knee-high, the ancestors will rise at dawn and move to meet us from the east. A wave of north winds and high water will come first and wash the world ahead of them. Inside earth lodges underground, the people will be safe. The flood tide will roll over and withdraw. Acorns will be plentiful again. We will live well." Depot Charlie had one built by fall. The center pole was cedar. Indians came from Mendocino as far as the coast. The warm house was crowded. We circled, men and women alternating short steps clockwise, facing inward. The 4 dream singers sat inside with split stick clappers of elderwood. The big head maskers danced 5 sets by turns, with owl down pom-poms and yellowhammer quill headbands, quail plume tremblers nodding from the temples. People who never danced before did now. Old women danced like girls. It went on till past dawn. Then we ate and slept in the big house half the day. Hardly anyone went to sleep in his own camp. Everyone was waiting for the world to end. Most of us wanted to die together in a pile. We danced 4 nights and stopped. Some fainted and fell over and started dreaming. There would be no more getting sick and no more dying. Six's George said things like that. He lost his wife and son. He shook all over when he talked, his voice like running water. He stayed with us for years. He died in Baird about 1902. The dreaming lasted 2 years maybe, the dances 20. Finally, the old dancers died off and the earth lodges rotted away. Sometimes the town folk would invite the Indians to give a dance, and people used the old-time dream song feathers. It was for fun. They called it the feather dance. It was mostly a white man's show. Must be about, 35 years ago now, some East Coast critic disparaged the work of poets Gary Snyder, Lou Welch, Kenneth Rexroth, by applying to it the phrase "bear shit on the trail" poetry. And Kenneth Rexroth took that up and replied to it in an essay called, I think, Smokey the Bear Sutra, that largely talks about Snyder. Now, Rexroth is, if there is a tradition of bear shit on the trail poetry, Rexroth is probably its father. This is called Near Buckeye Forks. Buckeye Forks is a trail junction about 12 miles east, or 12 miles west from the east side of the Sierra, where Buckeye Creek forks 2 ways, and so does the trail. Near Buckeye Forks, it's time I wrote my bear shit on the trail poem, though generally in California wild bears don't defecate on trails. I don't mean garbage-eating camp bears strung out on junk food plundered from the plastic coolers of frightened tourists from New York and Massachusetts, or rare imported bears displayed at zoos, bears dancing in circuses disguised as lap dogs, or stuffed and posed in public institutions. By wild bears, I mean ones mostly never seen besides off-trail. What need for paths have animals who somersault through boulder fields and cliff-face willow thickets unimpeded, like clowns in baggy overalls practicing gymnastic stunts? Sunny summer mornings, a bear shits in the shade on hemlock duff and sprawls circles in the meadow, toppling corn lilies like a child. His ropey coil of grass deposited out of the wind behind the summit outcrop means early spring is lean enough it makes a bear eat weeds. Ripe huckleberries and fragmented trout bones splattered on lichened granite lakeside say, "Good times at last." When a wild bear shits on the trail, he means it. Large, fresh piles at emphatic intervals marking the last mile of descent to Buckeye Forks proclaim the pocket glade overlooking the confluence, the bramble patch below the ford, his personal domain. This particular bear is a cousin of Apollo in Robinson's poem, and that's why it's his personal domain. I'll read you 2 more poems here. The first is called "A Resurrection of the Body." I mentioned Israfel. In the usual Christian tradition, it's Gabriel who sounds the trumpet that ends the universe. But in some Arabic and Persian traditions, it's Israfel that takes care of that business. The resurrection of the body. Naked as the day they were born the first time, the newly resurrected blink awake, wide-eyed, and caper innocent under heaven in the final clarity of eternal everyday, like nudists without tennis shoes, unstartled to resume bodies, homely as the first, lumpish and pointy-elbowed, adult but not worn, like a loved coat remade, a perfect fit, comfortable as an animal with a soul at home entirely instinct with uncareful grace. The sting of seasons sated at the feast where every head is numbered, pleasure's instrument and slave to pain, luck's buried hook and fatal barb of risk, blunted this time, lost in the blast this morning from the horn of Israfel. And this last poem is called Ranch House at Schwartz. Schwartz is a town in southwest New Mexico. Not even a town. Schwartz is a ranch house. Ranch House at Schwartz. Her peach orchard in flagrant bloom at dusk, spilling its apron of petals above the riverbed, flamingo pink darkening to wine as evening eases downstream. On the breeze, a prickle of the mountains. The intervening yard from her back porch, a labyrinth of junked machinery, wrecked vehicles stripped, abandoned, a maze of failed devices, like a barricade distractedly erected by her men between her and the solitary blush of color beside sage, not in derision or embarrassment exactly. The cool of twilight washes toward the playa. Her best house dress flaps on the line, done drying. Thank you.